the most wonderful time of the year. That's right, we're back after a long period of time. Another whole new pod is coming your way. I'm your host, Lucas Melby, and with me,
Jack Skellington.
So first things first, we apologize for our lengthy month-long hiatus. It's definitely the ideal way to start a new podcast. Absolutely. It was always in the plans for us. Some things got in the way. We had the holidays with Thanksgiving. I was dealing with some health issues.
Busy with work on this day.
Yeah, Jacob was busy with work. Just to make a long story short, on my end, I had a root canal. So in the lead up to that, I was dealing with jaw pain, just general not feeling good, probably because of an infection in my tooth. So not fun stuff. So this all kind of culminated into us not doing an episode for a very long time. But we're getting you your present this year. We're getting one in before Christmas time. And what better movie for us to cover than the 1998 Disney Channel original movie classic, Halloweentown.
Halloweentown.
It's spookily festive.
Oh.
I say it's a classic because I think this is definitely one that is held up in high regard in the pantheon of 90s kids nostalgia.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, Jacob was very excited to watch this and definitely remembered large parts of the movie. It's also, we've gotten into the first DCOM franchise. There are, at least as of now, 4 Halloweentown movies total.
I knew 3 total.
So we get to look forward to at least 3 more entries in the Halloweentown cinematic universe. It's got spooks, it's got frights, but like the Fast and the Furious movies and a lot of Disney Channel movies, it's about family when you get down to it. So before we get down into it, as a result of us having this long hiatus, this episode is also going to be a little weird because trying to break up, we usually just watch the movie and record immediately afterwards, but we try to split that up. So we watched the movie about a week and a half ago at this point, so definitely not the ideal way to do it. So we ran through the Wikipedia entry, we ran through our notes, try to reacquaint ourselves with the picture, so hopefully this isn't too off, but if we're stumbling around talking like a bunch of fools,
bear with us.
We at least have an explanation for it this week as opposed to the other weeks. With that being said, we'll get right into the good old Halloweentown. So we always have to fixate on how these movies open. This one is a very fittingly spooky opening with a slow zoom in onto a jack-o'-lantern up into its candle inside of its mouth. And then we get a quick smash cut to just Halloween night. There's kids out on the street trick-or-treating all over the place. And I would say it's like the busiest group of trick-or-treaters I've ever seen. I don't know if it's just that we've lived in Minnesota all our lives, so sometimes Halloween can come on a very cold night, but I'm not used to seeing that many kids outside.
Streets were packed. And then we see Sophie, the younger sister, the younger of the sisters, looking out of the window and possibly some foreshadowing from her, but I won't hint on that quite yet.
Yep, so we're zooming in or panning into the Cromwell house. That's our main family. Sophie, as Jacob said, was looking out the window, but there's no kids going up to the house. Everybody seems to be avoiding it. And Marnie, who is our main character, the oldest of the Cromwell children, is inside with some of her friends, and she's getting into a bit of an argument with her mother, Gwen, about going to a costume party, which Gwen just does not want to have anything to do with.
Will not allow.
She can't go to a costume party, but her friends are like, why not, Mrs. Cromwell? She's into weird things. She should love everything about Halloween. And the mother, Gwen, is just like, just get out. Get the fuck out of my house.
Yeah. Gwen's not a fan, and neither is brother Dylan.
Yes, Dylan, who fits into the super nerd archetype established with Gilbert in Under Wraps, where he's got the glasses and he's just a dweeb, and he's all like, well, actually, Halloween sucks because candy's bad for you.
He's talking mad crap about Halloween, and then he starts talking about Arbor Day, saying, trees aren't important too,
Yeah, Marnie, why aren't you into Arbor Day? So he's just getting up in Marnie's business like a good, annoying little brother would do, and Marnie's just like, parents don't understand. And already at this point, I'm like, Marnie kind of sucks.
Yeah, she wasn't really...
If she's supposed to be the relatable, likable person in this movie, she's not getting off to a good start.
I'm more in on Sophie.
I don't know. We'll just leave it at that. Then Dylan just asks Marnie, why are you so fixated on Halloween? And she kind of just goes into the general things. Like, it seems Halloween is a pretty cool holiday.
It's cool.
Yeah, I don't think you really need to justify why you're into Halloween. You know, candy's awesome, costumes are fun. It's just a generally good holiday. But also, Marnie mentions that Mom and Dad met on Halloween.
That's right.
And then Dylan says, don't talk about that. You know that makes Mom sad. So we already get a little reveal that Gwen is a single mom raising the Cromwell children, and that their father... Later we find out he's dead, but he is out of the picture for some reason at this point. So then we get a shot of outside of the house and a school bus, a magical school bus, no Mrs. Frizzle involved though, flies in, and then just a stop sign shoots down, or a bus stop sign shoots down into the ground. And then we get the great reveal of Grandma Aggie.
Debbie Reynolds.
Played by Debbie Reynolds. That's meaningful to somebody. I've even looked up her IMDb and I don't remember. But she's a very grandma type. She looks like Miss Marple, or I don't know. But she comes out of the school bus, because it is just a school bus. It's not like... For this to be a magical bus, you'd think of something like, I don't know, the magical buses in like Harry Potter, where they're like double-decker buses. They're like something, but this is just...
It's like a short bus.
Yeah, it is just a school bus that they had access to that they repurposed as this, spoiler, transport from Halloweentown to the mortal world. So Debbie, or this is gonna throw me off. Grandma, or Aggie. We'll call them alternatively. She gets out of the bus and floats down like a straight-up spooky Mary Poppins. It's okay, Disney owns it. And then also, she has a magical bag left up on the bus that moves on its own. It's kind of like the magic carpet in Aladdin, where it has basically its own mind, yeah. And it is reluctant to come along. And the one thing I just really felt when this was all going on is that nobody sees any of this happening. Nope. This is happening out on, I almost said Christmas night. Christmas on the mind, everybody. But Halloween night, there's trick-or-treaters everywhere. Her being dressed as a witch, because she's just a straight-up witch.
Yeah.
No, like, that's one thing. But for this just magical bus to be floating there and nobody say anything, I was like, okay, whatever. So then we have a scene cut back into the house where the little sister, Sophie again, she's being scolded by her mother in the kitchen because Sophie really wants a cookie, but Gwen does not want her to spoil her supper. But Sophie really wants that cookie. And manifests psychic powers to move a cookie, but her back is turned away from the cookies, and she's just like, "Oh, I really want this cookie." So this cookie is floating behind her towards her, and Gwen intercepts it and then eats it before she can get it.
After she was just told by her mother, no cookies.
Yeah. So we're getting a little, again, I wouldn't even call it foreshadowing necessarily. It's just straight up shadowing that Sophie's a little special and has some definite powers. Grandma appears at the door, comes in to greet the children, and it'll soon be revealed that she is a real witch. But I don't know how these kids have never been, ticked off to that, because she just looks like an actual witch.
I think Sophie mentioned that, how she had liked her grandmother's, outfit.
Yeah, so we do find out that Grandma only is able to visit on Halloween night, and usually for only a few hours.
Human mortal hours of...
Oh, yeah. We'll get into the debate of Halloweentown hours versus normal Earth hours. It's very confusing. Yeah. So I guess she can get away with looking like a witch as just saying it's a costume.
She's like 5,000 years old. She's old.
She comes in, is handing out candy, and
from her magic bag. Her bag full of off-brand generic candy.
Yep, it's the kind of candy that when you got it on Halloween, you
would
throw it away or gave it to your parents, because this was old people candy. Just
candy, and there's decorations, and there's outfits. There's 3 weird outfits. The one Dylan had called a pimple outfit, I believe.
Yeah, Marnie gets like a princess outfit. Dylan, he gets like a warrior thing.
Troll.
Yeah.
What was Sophie's?
I don't know. It's been a while. But going back to the candy, I just think that's so funny in movies. It's kind of like in Christmas movies where you see Santa's toy shop, and it's like all these toys, but since they can't, pay for the licenses, kids, they want video games, they want things that have name brands associated with them, so they can't put those in a movie. So you just get like dolls or like wooden blocks or horses and stuff that no kid would ever want. And then we have this situation with this candy that no kid would actually want, but they have to be marking out for it when really they want Snickers and Skittles and stuff like that. So yes, they got the spooky presents and costumes. And then Grandma mentions that it's special because it's Marnie's 13th Halloween. Mm-hmm. The spooky, unlucky number. They settle down for dinner. They have, I think, some kind of like fried chicken or something. That'll come into play a little bit later. Grandma mentions that she can only be there a few hours because they're like, Grandma, why don't you come visit us more? Why do you have to leave so soon? But to make the most of her time there, Aggie reads them a bedtime story.
Halloweentown.
Or she just starts telling them about Halloweentown. So yeah, she's telling them about Halloweentown and then about how, it's so awesome. There's witches and monsters. Yeah. And Marnie asks if there's banshees there. So once again, another callback to Under Wraps. Somebody, the Disney Channel, the DCOM production team, very into banshees. I still don't really know what banshees are. Dylan, being the intelligent, enlightened child, says, Grandma, I don't believe you. And that's when she busts out a book just called Halloweentown. So she's flipping through it. You see a bunch of different pictures of monsters, and then also a picture of a witch that looks suspiciously like Marnie. And Sophie says as much, and then you just get a good shot of Aggie just kind of looking at Marnie like, winking. I'm winking right now, but it's an audio podcast. You can't see.
Confirmed.
And then Gwen, the mother, just bursts in and is like, I'm not having any of this. And in so many words, kind of tells Grandma to get the hell out. She says, Grandma's got a bus to catch, so let's move this along. So then Mom and Grandma are arguing in the kitchen. The crux of their argument is that it's Marnie's 13th Halloween, which is the last night she can become a witch.
To start training, yeah.
It is very much the story of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Except instead of it being her sweet 16, it's the 13th Halloween. And during this argument, they're disagreeing, and the mom just wants Marnie to live a normal life as part of trying, get it back at Gwen, the mother. Aggie turns some fried chicken on the counter into a real chicken.
And at this point, too, Marnie had creeped downstairs.
Yeah, Marnie was dropping some eaves, in the words of Samwise Gamgee. They kind of settle the idea, okay, sure, Marnie's going to stay here, but then Grandma approaches the subject that she also wants Gwen to come back to Halloweentown, because that is where she lives, because she's worried that there's just been some weird stuff. There's darkness coming back into Halloweentown. There's people that are changing and disappearing, and Aggie's just very concerned about what this might mean. The mom, not too worried about it. She's like, they moved. I mean, I don't know if there's a different Halloweentown, like a suburb of Halloweentown. But she says, not a big deal. I'm not coming. And then to really get back at her, the grandma turns all of the leftovers in the fridge into chickens. Yeah, she's a real piece of work, that Aggie.
That Debbie.
Yep, that Debbie Reynolds. So Marnie sneaks back up to her room after hearing about this, and then goes and talks to Dylan to discuss it, because Dylan, he's the intellectual. And of course, being the intellectual, the constant skeptic, I bet he could have some good YouTube channels out there. He does not believe her. Marnie asks him, but why do you think our house is so weird? It's obviously because we're witches. Why wouldn't Mom want us to talk about magic or Halloween or other things? And I was just like, I don't know. You could just be like evangelical Christians or something. The households that were like, no Pokemon, no Harry Potter. Like, I feel like there's more obvious explanations than
Pokemon.
You're a witch. The Pokemon, they're the devil's workers, man.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm a what?
You're a wizard, Harry.
All right, we'll cut it off there. Marnie and Dylan do end up deciding that they're going to... I think maybe they look out their window and see the bus come down to pick up Aggie. So Dylan's like, well, there must be a logical explanation for this.
Always.
So he wants to see if it's true, and also if Marnie is just straight up crazy. So they sneak onto the bus through the emergency exit at the back, because again, it's a school bus. I don't know, I assume regular city buses must have some kind of exits, but it's very convenient for them to go into the danger zone and then hop into the school bus through the emergency exit.
Once they hop on, they see a Frankenstein-esque kind of dude. They see like the black lagoon monster, couple witches crackling up.
Yeah, they all. I said they talk like New Yorkers. I talk like a New Yorker. I don't know quite what their accent was, but it's even a little like old timey. Like, here you see here, Halloween night.
Might have been a ghost.
Yeah, the ghosts I can understand, but like some of just like the goofy monsters were they were just talking weird. So they're kind of just taking in this whole scene of all these monsters around them, and then Dylan's like, well, maybe they're just coming back from a costume party. But then they hit the dimensional portal, and then stuff gets...
Time continuum.
Yeah, it's getting all trippy outside. So Dylan is a little less sure. And then, long story short, they arrive in Halloweentown.
Pretty quickly. It was pretty quick travel.
It's still Halloween night in the mortal world, but it's just regular daytime in Halloweentown. And Halloweentown mostly just looks like a regular town, except it's populated by a bunch of...
monsters and...
Yeah, they look like bad Goosebumps characters.
Characters out of, Scooby-Doo movies.
Yep, Scooby-Doo. Get it in there. But as they're exiting the bus, because again, I think they try to sneak off of the back or something, they lose sight of Aggie. But then they also see that Sophie had followed them along. Because... Sophie! Yeah. That is a regular exclamation of people in the movie. It's just, Sophie! Because she's a special little kid. Yeah. It's implied again with her, like her special powers had like alerted them to her that like she heard them in her dream or something. Like That's not super important.
We also see when they're getting off the bus the giant pumpkin that was featured in the Halloweentown book, but the light's not on. There's no candle flickering. It looks kind of sad. I think Sophie mentioned that it looked kind of sad.
Yeah, it's just in the town square right there. It's a prominent decoration there. Then they're approached by the mayor, Calabar, who tries to warm up to them and say, oh, hey, how's it going? And then he pulls a lollipop from his ear to give to Sophie. And I was very pleasantly surprised that Sophie was like, no, that's gross. And that's what I was thinking. I'm like, wait, is she actually going to take this earwax lollipop? And she didn't. He's excited to hear that they're Cromwells. Yeah. They say,
children of Aggie, but children of Gwen.
Yeah, and says, oh, I'm going to hook you up with a ride to your grandma's, send you along on your way.
From Benny.
Yep. Benny, who is the fast-talking jokester cab driver, he's an animatronic skeleton. Yeah. And it's funny because Dylan, trying to be rational and explain how Benny could work the way he is, says he's probably animatronic.
Ding, ding, ding.
Which is, yes, that is, he is 100% animatronic. It's just a weird fourth wall break, maybe.
It was done really well, too. I mean, I think that was probably one of the most impressive aspects of this film.
That's where all the budget went and some of the extra side monsters. There's a werewolf that shows up later in the movie whose makeup is just absolutely terrible. Just to give myself some props, I should mention here that as soon as the mayor starts talking to them, I was like, yo, this guy is evil. He's the he's the villain.
I did not confirm at the moment, but...
Yeah. Because it's like, he's like the only other like named human character, and I had some kind of spidey sense alert going off for me. So they hop in the cab with Benny. Benny's driving them through Halloweentown, kind of pointing some stuff out to them. Yeah. And he warns them that it's probably going to be pretty dangerous for them to be there on their own, just as normal humans. And to specifically, watch out for Luke, who is... a local boy.
Human, just looks human, natural.
He's just, a young, looking punk, like a movie punk kid.
Straight out of...
Just leaning on a wall or something. Something like The Outsiders or Grease, maybe. he's mostly unassuming, especially within this realm of monsters, that, no, this guy who just looks like a human is the one you need to be worried about. So they get dropped off at Aggie's, but they're halted in their progress by a locked gate. Marnie can't open it. She's just banging on it, pulling on it. She starts arguing with Dylan about how to open it. Dylan's like, well, you're a witch. Just use a spell. But Marnie can't. And then Sophie, again, being super powerful, having all these latent, innate abilities to her, turns it into a frog, and the frog hops away. But this all happens when Dylan and Marnie have their backs turned.
We hear the gate creak open, and they turn around.
Yeah, so they're like, Sophie, how'd you open it? She said, I just pushed. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense to me. So then we cut into the house where Grandma is cooking up something. She has...
Which is brew.
Yep. And she's using some kind of, I assume, magical microwave, because on it, the buttons just say things like bubble, bubble, toil, and trouble that she all hits. And I was like, that's fucking stupid. And I hate this movie. But then she's interrupted by the kids. Grandma immediately says, guys, you can't be here. You have to go home. Your mom's going to be so mad. But they convince her that, oh, well, we can stay, right? And she says, okay, yeah, that's fine. You just have to get back by midnight. So we have set up this arbitrary time limit to add some urgency to the film.
And I believe when she mentions the midnight thing is when the whole... How much, how long is that in Halloweentown? It could be 1 hour, if we're on vacation, it could be 1 year,
Yeah, so as Jacob alluded to, we have this timeline set up to have some sort of urgency in the film, but immediately the rules are made meaningless because there's no sense of time there. 2 hours could be 2 weeks or days, and nothing matters. Yeah, that was a real sticking point for me, but I will just have to move on from that. Then Aggie conjures up in her cauldron a seeing spell to show the children kind of what she's concerned about and working on here. And that's when we get a first glimpse of the big bad, the villain of the movie.
Calabar.
Wow. Big spoiler. I mean, I already said, he's probably evil, but for now, the evil or just the darkness that Aggie has been referring to just kind of looks like your run-of-the-mill...
Phantom of the Opera. No.
Phantom of the Megaplex. What? No, just, like a ghoul or something with a dark cloak on. Grandma tries to restore an amulet or scepter. She refers to it as the talisman of Merlin or Merlin's talisman. It really just looks like a cheap prop that a king or a magician might use in a movie. Like something you could buy at a costume store.
Which probably was.
Which can be said for a lot of what you actually see in this movie. It doesn't work, and she makes some comment of, well, that's what I get for using instant, which, again, is some dumb joke of comparing, no. Okay. Moving on. So she's like, well, this is what you get for using instant, so let's start from scratch. And she's all set to do that, and the kids are going to help. Meanwhile, Gwen, back in the mortal world, where it's still Halloween night, discovers that her kids are missing. And that's all we get from her for right now. Grandma, back in Halloweentown, starts to fill the kids in on the lore of Halloweentown as they're walking to whatever their destination is to find the ingredients. And basically, Halloweentown, the residents of Halloweentown used to live in the normal world, but, I don't know, ancient times, disagreements with people, they've since been banished to Halloweentown. And that's why the two worlds are separate right now. Grandma sees one of her friends, who she actually saw earlier in the movie.
As normal. She was normal, but like Lucas had said, people have been changing, people have been disappearing. And there's this lady, when Aggie sees her, she's turned into some evil-looking witch kind of out of her mind wacko.
Yeah, so earlier she was just like one of the normal human residents. Yeah. Which I guess any human resident of...
Probably
it has to be a witch of some kind. But now she's turned into, some kind of troll-faced thing. And that scares Aggie. She then comes into contact with the mayor, Calabar, and tells her that her friend has changed and that basically with what she's experienced, that means she's probably going to be disappeared in a day. The mayor says, don't worry about it. And then Aggie's like, no, but seriously, dude. And he's like, okay, but just give it a couple of days and then we can deal with it then. They stop at a broom shop that is run by what I would describe as a guy from They Live, what the alien creatures looks like there.
An Elvis vibe from
yeah.
He was kind of talking like a...
Yeah, I wrote in my notes, he's a super rad talker.
Yeah.
A good salesman. The brooms looked cheap as fuck.
Yeah.
Not even to say that the brooms in Harry...
Like, straight out of the broom closet.
Yeah, they're made out of plastic. They look like complete garbage. Not even to say the stuff in Harry Potter might be, like, super cool, but, like, those are at least brooms made out of straw and stuff. So they hop on to the brooms, or Grandma and Marnie hop onto the brooms, fly up, and...
Quite the ride.
Yeah, good effects to show that they're definitely...
Sick green screen.
Definitely flying in the actual sky. And Marnie isn't the one actually navigating the broom, but then Aggie switches it over and says, now you fly. And Marnie's like, but I don't know how. And I guess the explanation to using a spell that Aggie gives is just, like, sometimes seeing is believing. Or you just gotta believe. And then Marnie, I guess, believes and is able to make the broom fly. So then they return back down, and that's when we get our first in-person encounter with local rascal punk Luke. But Luke just does seem like trouble because he just goes up and starts hitting on Marnie immediately, like, hey, you want to like go on a date or something?
I do have Luke is the quote-unquote town douchebag.
Yeah. And Marnie, for very good reasons, having never heard anything about this guy except he's trouble, and he just seems like a dick, says, no, go away.
Bye, Felicia.
So he's like, yeah, you'll regret this. I have powerful friends. You should go on a date with me. So he walks away, and then we get my favorite line from the rad-talking cool guy selling the brooms. He says, Luke turned into such a wiener. And then Mom Gwen gets in and is like, oh, hell no. What the hell is going on here? And with the mom, I don't know if it's showing that like she like took the bus or anything. She just like appears in Halloweentown. I guess she was a witch, but you can't dig in too much into the minutia of Halloweentown, otherwise I will go crazy. Mom's like mad at Grandma. Grandma explains, oh, they they followed me. I didn't bring them here. And Mom's like, you're coming home with me right now. And I just find Gwen to be a good mother. She's relatable. She's correct in not wanting her kids to, like, live in Halloweentown.
Maybe a good mother, but not a fun mother.
No.
We all strive.
And it's definitely the intention that we're not supposed to agree with Gwen.
Yeah.
But as I've grown older, I've found a lot of time in movies, like, the overbearing parents just kind of seem like they're the good people in this situation.
Fair.
Marnie is the one we're supposed to like, but she's just an obnoxious teenager.
Yeah.
And that's probably what I'll get with a lot of these Disney Channel movies, is I'm no longer the target audience.
Not related.
Gwen drags the kids back to the bus station, where we get a little treat with, it's a well-worn trope, or just kind of character in these magical lands, but it's a two-headed, the guy who's taking the tickets is like a two-headed guy. Yeah. So they're arguing with each other, being like, oh, don't drink that espresso. I hate caffeine. It's going to get me so wired. So I found them pretty funny and humorous. Marnie is just being, again, obnoxious. And then the mothers sit here. She goes and talks to the ticket takers. They give her kind of like the go around, but basically tell her the bus is not going to be back for several hours. Yeah. Halloweentown hours. I don't know the calculations, the transfer.
Months,
yeah.
Decades.
So Gwen goes to see the mayor to see if they can sort something out. And not knowing who the mayor actually is, and Calabar actually used to know Gwen, maybe implied they had some sort of romantic past.
Sexual relations, who knows?
Sure. So he's all like, Gwen, you look great. Oh, kids, that's cool too. He gives her a rose. I think he magically conjures it or something.
As the warlock he is.
Asks her on a date. She turns him down and just says, hey, what about this bus? And then he's like, yeah, sure, I'll take care of it. And then he has to leave for some reason, I think. Then we get Aggie, who's walking on her own now, separated from her family because Gwen has come and repossessed her children, which is her motherly right. And then she's confronted by Luke, who Luke tells her that he knows the big bad dude, and that he, the big bad dude, wants to meet Aggie. And Aggie asks him, like, what's his name? And he's like, bitch, you don't know? And Aggie's like, no, seriously, I don't. And he doesn't tell her, but he leads her into an abandoned movie theater that I think Jacob saw written on, like, the marquee, just that closed forever or something like that. Yeah. Then back in the mayor's office, Marnie is arguing with her mom, saying it wasn't her mom's decision to decide whether she should be a witch or not, which, to give Marnie some credit, is maybe a fair thing that she should have been included on the decision-making. But Sophie sees through the window...
Sophie!
Yeah. Sophie sees Grandma and Luke going into the theater, and then alerts to the rest of the family, so they're like, that seems kind of like a bad situation. So they all follow Aggie and try to get into the theater. Aggie comes face to face with the big bad, who we had seen previously in the cauldron. And she also sees that he has trapped some of the residents, including her friend, in the theater, and they've just been... She's like, oh, you killed them, because they're just sitting in the seats, not moving. And he's like, no, I froze them in time.
I can use them for my army later.
Yeah, he says, I'll use them later, and then he never actually uses them, so I don't really understand his plan there.
He never got to that point.
Yeah. So we get a really good look of the evil dude, who's just green-faced, and it seems like the makeup or the mask he has is not really super movable, and I don't mean to be mean or anything, but when he's talking, it kind of looks like he has Bell's palsy, where his mouth isn't moving. Wrestling fans will know that announcer JR, good old JR, suffered from Bell's palsy, and his mouth doesn't move, and he got made fun of for that. I'm not saying, to make fun of it. It just looks weird with this guy. Yeah. The Shade, the bad guy, shoots some magic at, shoots bad magic effects at Grandma. And I think she was able to, fight him off for, a bit.
A little bit.
There's a bit of a distraction because Gwen and the children bust in. Yeah. Luke goes up to try to stop them, and Gwen mutters some kind of spell, which causes a bunch of flowers to appear all over Luke. And she's like, oh, I said the wrong thing, but she kind of just, shoves him aside. And then the Grandma loses her fight with the Shade, and then also Gwen also gets hit by a spell. So they're both frozen in time.
In their seats in the theater.
Yeah, they're able to, they've fallen and can't get up, but they've fallen into a nice comfy seat. Or as comfy as theater seats can be, I guess. As they're freezing, Aggie is still able to get off some words.
I'm not dead.
Yeah, I'm not actually dying. Go.
Freezing, save Halloweentown.
Yeah, so she says, oh, you guys have to do this now. Go finish the recipe. So the kids get out. As they're opening the door to the escape, some light comes in, and they kind of notice that...
The big bad.
Yeah, he doesn't like the light, which actually isn't really relevant, but a lot of this...
Yeah, that's true. Later on, yeah.
We build up some, lore and stuff, and it just does not come to play at all.
Good point.
So, they need to finish the recipe...
Which calls for a hair of a werewolf,
yes,
sweat of a ghost, and a vampire fang.
So first on their list, the hair of the werewolf, they go to Halloweentown barbershop.
Yep, by the lion,
Well, he's supposed to be a werewolf, but yeah, he looks like like the cowardly lion type makeup, not the full... You think of a werewolf where it's hair all over, and this guy...
But he is a barber and he trims up.
Yeah, so maybe he's styled his hair, but it's really only on the top of his head.
Yeah.
Marnie kind of infiltrates the situation and is trying to get a part-time job or something. Yeah. And he's kind of like, no, go away. But he turns his back to her, and she just takes a pair of clippers and just shaves off a big chunk of his head. And then they run away, and then...
He likes it, too.
Yeah, he looks in a mirror... Keeping in mind that the patch of hair that he lost is on the back of his head, he's holding up a mirror and says, maybe I can make this work. Yeah. But he can't even see anything. No. Just putting that out there. That aside, then they move on to the sweat of a ghost, which is a gross thing to have to get. And they're kind of like, where will we get this? And they go to a gym, which, if I was an eternal being with no corporeal body, I would definitely still want to work out. Not true. I don't even work out enough as I should be right now. But they go to a gym. They're not finding a ghost immediately, but then they go into a sauna.
Yeah.
And they see a large, portly ghost going into what you might call like a steam
box.
Yes, that's what they call it, a sweat box. And they were like, "Is that a real sweat box?" And
he was stout.
Yeah.
A stout ghost who ended up coming out very, very thin.
Yeah, he went from thick to thin. But I don't know, Marnie just doesn't want to go up and like collect his sweat or even ask him for sweat. I mean, if this is something that's in a lot of witch recipes, he's probably used to people asking him for some sweat. But she has to be all sneaky about it. So she asks Dylan to distract the ghost. And Dylan does, I can't even remember some of the things he says. He just starts spouting out some, like, facts. And the ghost is like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool, that is interesting. All right, you can go away now. And
crank it up, the heat way up.
Yeah, so it's getting really hot. He's kind of concerned, the ghost is, asking for help.
Yeah.
And then Dylan is feeling, he's not really distracted too much anymore. So then Sophie throws on a sheet. Sophie throws on a sheet that she finds and just starts pretending to be a ghost.
He is offended.
Yeah, it's highly offensive. And he's like, yo, don't stereotype us ghosts. We're not all like that. And she's just all, ooh. Yeah. Not even a very, like, good fake ghost.
Did it better earlier.
Yeah. So with this all happening, Marnie just runs up with a little bottle, gets some sweat off his nose, and then they run away. Yeah. And then he comes out of the steam box, and he's really thin.
Big underwear.
Yeah. Kind of a, I don't know, Three Stooges type comedy or something. So then last on the list is A Vampire's Fang. And for that, they go to the local Halloweentown dental office, where luckily a vampire is getting its fang taken out, which I didn't know vampires could lose their fangs.
I think they just die.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty important to their abilities and character. And the dentist is a very creepy looking figure.
Yeah, big nose. I don't know.
Yeah, big long nose, kind of just looking like a troll. And then he has some off comment like, well, it's okay because I'm the Tooth Fairy. And it's I never, even after seeing the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movie, The Tooth Fairy, I wouldn't think of the Tooth Fairy being that horrific. So they get all of their supplies. They're heading back into town when they run into Benny, the skeleton cab driver, again. And he tries to give them a ride.
He's evil now. He's turned, too.
Yep. Jacob's girl, Sophie, with her infinite powers, senses that he's possessed by the Shade. Which, again, it's not something, like, we see those people change before, and maybe it's implied that they're possessed. So maybe this is, like, him finally utilizing one of, like, the members of his army. I don't know.
I could see that.
But they hear that from Sophie, and then they kind of fight him off and escape to Aggie's house on their own to finish up the witch's brew. They get all the ingredients in, but then Marnie realizes she doesn't remember the spell that she had said earlier.
Ima, Bakey McFeary, Bakey Bosco, something.
Jacob apparently remembers, and this was a week and a half ago. Marnie tries to come up with some different spells. It's quite funny. She just says some random stuff and it just doesn't work. Luckily, though, Sophie remembers what the nonsense words that Aggie had said earlier because she put it into a song because that's the thing she does. Oh, how convenient. Thanks. That's how Jacob remembered it. But they say the words, but it's still not working. And then Marnie remembers her lesson from Aggie when they were flying on the broom, and that spells just need you to want them to work. Yeah. Which I don't know if she was
pretty deep.
Not wanting it to work before, but it's kind of a life and death situation.
Believe in it, believe in the spell.
Yep, believe in the heart of the cards spell. What? Okay. And then it works, and we get a great line from Dylan, or it might have been Marnie. She just says, because they're restoring the talisman, Merlin's talisman, which has this kind of big orb on the end.
Yeah.
So it's restored, and light starts coming out, so one of them says, "It's lit!" And
fam.
So then me and Jacob just immediately turned to each other and said fam, because we're cool like that. They take the lit talisman and return to the theater, but they aren't able to wake up Grandma and Mom with it. They're able to get into the theater, no problem, no bad guy shows up, but it's not waking them up. And then through some leaps of logic, I don't even really remember how she gets to this point, but Marnie decides that she has to put the talisman inside of the jack-o'-lantern, as Jacob was good to bring up earlier in the episode. It wasn't lit, so they need to get to that and light it up. And I think this is what some people in the business might call a deus ex machina. Something that solves a problem basically just completely contrived and it makes no sense. But hey, it works. So they're heading back to the town square when the Shade, the big bad, appears. He starts turning the sky black. So I guess that ties to him being able to appear not during like the light. But again, you'll see find out why none of this really seems to matter or make any sense. So he appears and starts telling the town that he's trying to bring back the Halloweentown residents to the real world and that they should no longer have to be exiled to the separate world, which actually seems reasonable. Like he maybe is doing some bad stuff to get there, but I feel like he's justified in wanting that to work out for the townspeople. And then it's revealed that, as I mentioned earlier, that the big bad guy is actually Calabar, the mayor, and he just reveals himself, which, again, why did he... I mean, up to dealing with Aggie, he could have used the disguise, but when he was approaching the townspeople, he could have just said, hey, this is my plan. This is what I've done, and this is what I want. He didn't need to first show up as the Shade guy to just reveal that he wasn't the Shade guy. And then, again, all the stuff with, he can't go into the light, and blah, blah, blah.
Didn't matter.
Did not matter. So then, while this is all happening, Marnie is making her way to the jack-o'-lantern, but then she's stopped by Luke, who says, no, I'm a good guy now. It's a trap, don't go in the jack-o'-lantern, that's what he wants to do. And Marnie didn't want to believe him, which I kind of agree with her. It sounds like something a bad guy would say, that I'm no longer a bad guy.
Yeah.
But she ends up actually believing him, and Luke takes, Marnie was wearing a cloak of some kind. He takes it and runs kind of as a decoy to distract Calabar. Calabar thinks it's Marnie, shoots him down with a spell, and then finds, oh, it's not Marnie. Where's Marnie? Oh, she's on the pumpkin, about to put the talisman in there, but then he shoots her with a spell that begins to freeze her.
Drops her out.
But, conveniently, she still somehow drops the staff.
Last second of energy.
The Merlin's talisman falls right into place into the jack-o'-lantern. So then Marnie wakes up, Luke wakes up, the people in the theater.
Big light comes out of the jack-o'-lantern, and I mean it was finally lit.
It's lit, fam.
Calabar blocked his head. And
Jacob was making a dabbing motion. I think he's trying to say that Marnie dabbed on Calabar. Mom and Grandma wake up, and they come out to confront Calabar, but he steals the talisman or something from the pumpkin and tells them that he plans to rule both worlds and that Gwen really should have gone on his date and become his queen. So I don't know if that's implied that why he wants to take over the mortal world is maybe because of something with Gwen. His motivations aren't really super clear, though I do agree that it sounds fair to the Halloweentown residents that they shouldn't be exiled to their own world anymore. Mom and Grandma try to combine their powers to magically stop him, but they aren't able to overpower him, even with Sophie and Marnie getting in. But our boy Dylan hasn't had a lot to do so far in the movie, but he awakens to his powers. And I, making good on my Bell's palsy comment earlier, this is just a typical Hollywood trope, the man having to save the day, rescuing the women. It's sad. Disney Channel, you should be better than this.
He's got the little sparks coming from his fingers, and either Sophie's like, Dylan, look.
Dylan! Sophie! And with that, the Cromwell family is able to overpower Calidor with their...
Calabar.
Calidor. At this point, I eventually went back and rechanged some of my notes to have his name right, but at this point, I'm just like, what the fuck is his name? Calidor? So yeah, you got a peek behind the curtain that, at this point, I was writing Calidor. So Calabar is overpowered, and then for reasons to mostly set up a sequel called Halloweentown 2 Calabar's Revenge, he is absorbed into the talisman to fight another day that might just be a few years down the line. Gwen and Marnie make up. Gwen apologizes for not understanding, and Marnie reciprocates, says, "Oh, I wasn't understanding and trusting you." So that's all cleared out. And again, good Disney Channel fashion. A lot of stuff gets wrapped up very quickly here at the end.
Quick ending.
In one of my favorite reveals in the movie, Luke comes out, and it's shown that he was actually a troll. Calabar had made a deal with him to make him into...
Handsome boy.
Yeah, he wasn't even like that good looking.
Oh. Just a human.
Yeah.
Human boy.
Just, a street punk. So he comes out and he says something along the lines like, "Well, it wasn't even worth it because I couldn't even get a date with you, Marnie."
Yeah.
And I kind of was just like, "What? What?" Yeah, so
Then I think they end up hooking up and everything's all good.
Yeah, Marnie gives him a kiss, and I just have written here, why? What has he done to really deserve a kiss? I think she kisses him on, like, his forehead or something. So it's not, like, that huge of a deal, but it's like...
No time.
Come on, Halloweentown. We didn't need you to fill in, like, all of these different tropes where we needed the forced love story. Because this is really just... They had interacted basically 2 times before this, and now she's just infatuated with them.
I was kind of hoping Gwen and Calabar would get back together. They kind of did, in a sense.
Well, who knows what happens in the sequel? Along with this super quick resolution, it's decided that Grandma Aggie is going to live with them.
What's going to happen to her estate, though?
I don't even know how that's allowed. If she was only ever able to visit for hours on Halloween, how she's even allowed to go there. But then Marnie's like...
I think that was probably based on the mother. The mother saying she could only hang out until the portal closes, kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. Again, not really clear the logistics involved with going to and from Halloweentown and the mortal world. But Gwen is going to be the one to train Marnie, and not Grandma. So fucking take that, Aggie. Take it and shove it. And then the family just hops onto the bus. It takes off, flies away, blasts off. Yeah, they're waving goodbye, and then it's until the movie has a sequel. So that was Halloweentown. Another one in the books, and hopefully it won't be as long to our next one.
Hopefully.
So, Jacob, you were a big proponent of Halloweentown. How did you feel it held up to your memories?
Watching again, I remembered a lot of the fun little... watching it as older, maybe don't appreciate, some of the things, being younger, but I thought it was still a fun idea for a movie, I guess. Like a Halloweentown, it's always Halloween. I think they actually do something like this out in maybe Oregon. There's kind of a town, I think, dedicated that kind of has like a Halloweentown. When Halloween does roll around, I think they have the big pumpkin out there as well, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a fun premise as long as you don't remember that a different Disney property had kind of come up with it years before called The Nightmare Before Christmas, which is a much better movie. But
not a Disney Channel original movie.
No. If only. I kind of felt, it's weird to say this, but that maybe Halloweentown was a little overhyped. That the idea that there's people out there hyping up any of these Disney Channel movies. But yeah, I kind of was underwhelmed.
Wasn't there for
it's a good premise, but they kind of, things get rushed together where, we kind of, halfway through the movie, they just established what Halloweentown was. Yeah. And then it's like, but now we need to have some kind of plot or conflict. So then it's introduced with Calabar. Let's get a love story. Let's throw that in. And it's just, yeah. So I have hopes for improvement with the franchise as it moves along.
They just had to get that money built up. This is what got people really watching or Disney Channel.
It certainly was the first. I guess Brink, as family members, were hearing about us watching Brink and recording the episode. They're all like, "Yeah, Brink, shit, that shit's tight. I loved that as a kid." And I'm like, I don't know anything about it. I ended up liking it a lot. Brinkman, or whatever the fuck that kid's name. He's my number one still. But Halloweentown was definitely the first one that I knew by name. So now we're getting into some of those heavy hitters. Halloweentown, Smart House is on the horizon. Yeah. So exciting times ahead for us. And if you want to get in on some of these exciting times, if you like, you can email us at a whole new pod at gmail.com. Comments, questions, criticism, hopefully only positive, constructive. We're very sensitive here. Send that to us there. You can also follow us on Twitter at a whole new pod. I have here in my notes written that Jacob sucks, but he is devoted to doing a better job. Not that we've had a lot of content to really put on our Twitter feed, but going forward, we'll try to do as much as we can there.
Would like to note this, too. I just looked up what our next one is. Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century. Zoom, zoom, zoom.
Oh, shit.
That's a fun one.
I just noticed that the setting on our microphone was something that it's not usually, so hopefully this didn't sound too weird.
Yikes.
As I said, it's been a while. Some more housekeeping. Rate us on your podcast platform of choice. Hopefully, if the audio was yikes on this episode, that doesn't affect your rating too much. You can follow Jacob on Twitter.
Jacob_Telejohn.
Yeah. Before, I didn't really have much to add, but this time, I have a little fun extra thing that you can follow me on Twitch.
Ooh, that's right.
Yeah, so follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/fat_tomato. And that's partially why the setting on the microphone was off, because I had it a little more behind the scenes. We aren't just recording on multiple microphones. We aren't that Hollywood. We're not that upscale. We're just doing it on one microphone. And usually we have it on a setting where it's receiving mostly from two ends. I had it where it was mostly receiving from the front end. So that's why you probably got a whole lot more of me than Jacob this episode. But hopefully you won't even notice, and I can fit this all in post-production or something. Then, definitely we're not going to get another episode out before Christmas, and probably not even New Year's, so happy holidays to everybody.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yep. It's already past Hanukkah already. That was earlier in the month, but yeah. All of those things. Happy Festivus for
Kwanzaa.
For you Seinfeld fans. And with that, I am going to take the outro this week because Jacob is not dependable. And I will say to all of our wonderful listeners that, remember, anything can happen on Halloween Town. What?
What?
Show the world. Let them know it's Halloween. Hit it!
I wouldn't change places with anyone tonight. We'll carve pumpkin faces and watch the witches' flight. Every human heart will shudder. Every soul will shake with fear. Tonight, the creepiest. Tonight, the scariest. Tonight, the most wonderful. The year anything can happen on Halloween. Your dog could turn into a cat. There may be a toad in your bass guitar, or your sister could turn into a bat. Christmas time brings the snow. Summertime brings the sun. But on Halloween, your blood begins to run. Something spooky's going down. Anything can happen on Halloween. It's better than a video. Gremlin's gonna mess up every cassette from London to Idaho. April 1st,